Hello, and thank you for joining us on our journey of 1,000 pages. I'm your host, Anty, with my co-host, Christina.
Hello, everybody. This month, we decided to dive into a very familiar genre for us, that being science fiction. To make it a little more interesting, we decided to look at a couple of genres that we're less familiar with. We will get into that in a moment. But first, the book that we read is Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan. It's also a TV show.
It is.
Again, we'll get
on
into
Netflix.
that.
Yes, we will get into that later in the show.
But a brief summary of the book is it's set in the 25th century. Humankind has spread across the galaxy, universe, whatever. And there is technology available to take a person's essence, soul, spirit, whatever.
They download brains and they can upload those brains onto other bodies, whether they be a naturally made body or a synthetic body.
Yes, they're called sleeves.
Yes.
And our protagonist is a former U.S. envoy named Takeshi Kovacs, and he has been sent across the galaxy to what was formerly San Francisco to solve a crime.
Yes. The hook of the book is that there's a super rich man who committed suicide and doesn't believe he actually committed suicide and wants Takeshi to solve his murder.
Because the police dismissed it.
Yes.
As suicide.
Correct. So that's kind of the mystery and the hook that is the driving force behind this book. Mm-hmm. It kind of falls under a dual genre of a cyberpunk noir.
Yes.
Which I have not had a lot of experience with noir. Have you read or consumed a lot of noir outside of this?
I have never read any noir. Mm-hmm. I have watched several.
Sure.
Some that came to mind are like The Maltese Falcon, The Asphalt Jungle, Notorious, Touch of Evil. Those are all classic black and white noir films.
Gross. Ew.
They're really fantastic.
Are they?
Yes.
I refuse to believe that.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page, I did pull up a definition of noir. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it is the word black in French.
Right.
It refers to a genre of film and fiction characterized by dark, gritty themes, cynical characters, and a sense of moral ambiguity, often featuring crime, violence, and a pessimistic outlook on life.
Yeah, which also just manages to fit hand in hand with the themes of cyberpunk.
It does. And obviously this being set in the 25th century is not noir in the traditional sense. It's neo-noir, which is new noir.
Listen, like neo-noir and neo-western, it just is a western or a noir that is made recently. We are not in the heyday of noir, just like we are not in the heyday of western. There's really not a huge difference between, theming-wise, the noirs and the westerns made today than there were during the heyday of those films.
When I looked into, is there any difference between noir and neo-noir, it's really when it was made, the only other difference being that in newer media, sex and violence is depicted more graphically.
That's not just noir.
That's just the
times. Yeah.
Yes. But yes, cyberpunk goes hand in hand with this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it is a subgenre of science fiction.
Yeah.
It is often characterized by a dystopian, high-tech, low-life society featuring countercultural anti-heroes, corporate control, and themes of technology, social inequality, and the blurring of the human and machine.
Not to get too jargony, cyberpunk is to sci-fi what low fantasy is to fantasy.
Okay. You want to expand on that a little bit?
No.
Okay.
Never mind.
Fine.
Ignore me.
I will say cyberpunk has been around a lot longer than I thought.
Yes.
It really started in the 60s and 70s with a lot of authors that I don't recognize. The one that did stand out was Philip K. Dick.
Yes.
Who wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, among other books.
Mm-hmm. Which has then been turned into the movie Blade Runner.
Yes.
But it does follow a lot of the same themings as noir, where it's that very dark and gritty kind of man on the street.
Yes.
Kind of vibes.
Hard-boiled detective, femme fatale.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of tropes in both of these genres that overlap a bit.
For sure. And that's part of the fun.
Yes.
Like that is part of the fun of the genre. Because normally I am not into noir, but give me noir with robot arms and I am here for it. All right. That's all I need. Everything's better with robot arms.
There was one aspect of this that did bother both of us as we were reading this book.
Yeah.
And it's not something we want to harp on a ton, but it was to the point that it was pulling us out of the story a little bit.
For sure. It is just the misogyny, to put it out there.
That and how much the protagonist is very obsessed with his anatomy.
This book was very much written by a straight man. I mean, I think when Kovacs first comes out of... So they kind of have a different prison system in this world. Instead of going to prison, you are put on stack, which basically means your consciousness is halted until you are put into another sleeve. And that can be for 50 years, that can be for 100 years. I think the main character in this one was in for 200 years or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Something absurd. Which I appreciate. This book does not fall into the traps a lot of sci-fi does of just like, you know, being like, oh, this happens in 2035. And it's like, wait a second. That is 10 years away.
Yes. At this point, that's very, very near.
Yeah. When we first started reading this, I remember us bringing it up to each other and talking about, oh, well, is this just him trying to kind of fill out that tone of a noir? Mm-hmm. Because it is. That is part of the tone. That is part of the allure of it. And like we have said before, that the tropes are part of the fun. Like we are not against tropes. We don't think they're always used appropriately. I go into a fantasy book because I want to see elves fighting dwarves and shit. Okay? I don't, I read a science fiction because I want robot arms. It's the tropes are there for a reason. That is part of the fun. But there's so much talking about his dick. He talks about it so much.
And his reactions to his dick's reactions to a lot of things, honestly.
At first it's like, okay, it is there's a comment about it when he initially comes out of the stack and gets this new body very early in the book. And it's like, okay, yes, this makes sense. He is this person who's trying to adjust through this new body, and so he is cataloging these responses that his body is having. And then he doesn't stop talking about it.
Yes, we get to hear about it a lot.
Constantly.
As well as the way women's breasts move.
Oh my God.
I even wrote some of them down because it was just comical to me how much that, like, quote, somebody's exuberant breasts. Somebody's breasts rising and falling distractingly. Her breasts jiggled. Her breasts moved beneath the thin cotton of her t-shirt. And I'm just like, are they just have a life of their own here?
I think the thing you said to me that I loved the most was something along the lines of, dang, they got them anime titty physics in this book. Because it is constant. And like we said, the reason we are bringing this up is because we don't want to harp on this entirely, but we want people to be aware of that if they're coming into the book. It is blatant, it is distracting, it is constant. While there is only so much defending we can do to be like, oh, it's the genre, he's trying to represent the genre. There was a point where we had to admit, okay, he's not representing the genre anymore. This is just him.
But back to the genre itself, I do have a paragraph that I had bookmarked that I thought would be a good example of like cyberpunk as a genre. And this does not give anything away. It's like 8 chapters in, but it doesn't reveal anything. So it says, I rented an ancient ground car from a seedy-looking dealership 2 blocks down from Prescott's office and drove north over the rust-colored suspension bridge. I needed time to think. The coastal highway was poorly maintained but almost deserted, so I stuck to the yellow line in the center of the road and barreled along at a steady 150. The radio yielded a medley of stations whose cultural assumptions were largely above my head. But I finally found a neo-Maoist propaganda DJ memory-wired into some dissemination satellite that nobody had ever bothered to decommission. The mix of high political sentiment and saccharine karaoke numbers was irresistible. The smell of the passing sea blew in through the open window, and the road unwound ahead of me, and for a while I forgot about the corpse and and everything else that had happened since.
I am here for it. I love that sentence. I love all the jargon. I read that and I go, I want to know what all these things do.
And it's interesting because that's the cyberpunk side of it. I also think the like opening paragraph I was very excited about because it's so noir. I just like reading portions of this book because I actually think it's well written.
Sure.
2 hours before dawn, I sat in the peeling kitchen and smoked one of Sarah's cigarettes, listening to the maelstrom and waiting. Millsport had long since put itself to bed, but out in the reach, currents were still snagging on the shoals, and the sound came ashore to prowl the empty streets. There was a fine mist drifting in from the whirlpool, falling on the city like sheets of muslin and fogging the kitchen windows.
Beautiful.
Chef's kiss.
I will say the writing style is pretty good. Like I very much enjoy it. I think it fits the genres very well. Mm-hmm. He does capture what cyberpunk and noir is.
Yes, that's all I got on that.
Okay.
It was well written.
Mm-hmm. If you like those two genres, if you like sci-fi, if you like noir, not a bad read.
If you heard those paragraphs though and shuddered, just keep going.
Yeah.
This is not going to be the book for you.
No.
So now that we've established the tone and what the genres mean, do you want to dig into the story and characters a little bit more?
Sure. I think, because we do talk about this a little bit, obviously, as we were reading this, because we don't know how to shut up. But at first, I was very interested in the main character. He was coming off of this roguishly charming, badass detective man. You've seen him a million times before. You know, he always has some response to everything people say. Just amazing at combat for some reason. And he does start out as charming, and you started out thinking, oh, maybe at some point he's going to grow throughout this book. He doesn't. He stays the exact same asshole the entire book.
And it kind of starts to wear on you about halfway through.
Yes. There was a point about halfway through where both of us were just like, I don't care about any of these characters anymore.
I have experienced the world enough that draw is gone. The characters are kind of all suck. Yeah. Not that they're bad characters. I mean, they're not very well rounded, but that's the standard stock characters for the genres.
Sure.
So that's fine. I just don't really care about any of them. And it also hit a point where I felt the plot was getting too convoluted for me to really care that much about solving any mystery anymore.
And we will talk about the show later because I have seen the show. But I remember there was a point where I mentioned to you that they were talking about 3 different characters, and I could not parse which one was which. What was it? It was Leslie Borden, Lizzie Elliott, and Louise something. And all of these characters worked in the same place, and they were all important for different reasons.
Yes, but they all worked together and had the same job.
Yes.
And they all had names that began with L.
And it was very confusing, and I was not a fan.
Future writers, please don't do this to your audience.
At least with the BS fantasy names, I can just kind of go, oh yeah, it's... This one I couldn't, unfortunately.
No, you have to sit there and go, okay, hold on.
Yes.
Which one is Louise again?
There were multiple pages that I was kept flipping back and forth to be like, okay, wait, who is who in this situation?
There were multiple times, especially as I got into the latter half of the book, that I was sitting down to read, and I kept going, wait, am I stupid?
Yeah.
Am I stupid, or is this more complicated than it needs to be? And then I went on Goodreads after I finished the book to give my rating. And I just scrolled through the first page or 2 of reviews, and I felt very vindicated because there are a handful of 1-star reviews right there on the first page. And those people were complaining either about the level of misogyny, or they were saying this was unnecessarily convoluted and I stopped caring.
I mean, and it is unfortunate because you have the setup for such a great noir. You have the rich guy who is hiring the detective for his own personal reasons. You have the hard-boiled police detective who begrudgingly works with our protagonist for whatever reason. You know, you have the whores, a staple of a noir, a staple of a cyberpunk. Yep. Yes, you're going to a whorehouse at some point.
It's just going to happen. It
just is. And then they all just kind of suck. And also, if they're a woman, the protagonist has to have sex with them for some reason.
Yeah. I will say, I think that was the disappointing aspect to me, because the first half of the book, I was so interested in the world building. And I know we had a conversation early on about this, that just tiny little things like, okay, the man that hired our protagonist is hundreds of years old because, you know, he keeps just quote unquote like re-sleeving himself in new bodies because he's a billionaire and has the money to do so. And the slang on the street for people who are that old and wealthy are meths, which is short for Methuselah. And I just remember talking to you about the fact that that's one of the things that I love about science fiction, especially science fiction that is set in future Earth, basically, to see how culture and language has evolved. Because it's not gone.
Right.
But like you have like in the paragraph I read earlier saying that, you know, he was flipping radio stations and landed on some neo-Maoist propaganda. Yes. Is your average reader going to recognize what that is? No, maybe not. And it's like not important to the plot.
No,
like this
not
never
even
is
remotely.
mentioned ever again. But it shows to me that the author took the time to consider how Earth's culture might evolve over thousands of years, looking ahead.
For sure. And I do think slang specifically is such a hard thing to write.
Yes.
Because I know we've seen it in TV shows where they just replace a word with another word. Like, I don't know. I can't think of a good example of this.
Me neither, but it's
I'm
definitely
trying to think
been
of what
done.
they said in Batman Beyond. What was it? Shui or something like that?
What?
Yeah. Instead of like cool or sick or whatever.
That's really dumb.
Okay, yeah, no, it is. And that is a bad slang. But I do appreciate in this book how there is things like the Methuselah where it's like, okay, here's why this is slang.
Yes.
This is what has happened. This is what has come up to cause this to be a thing.
Yes, and it's not overdone.
No.
Because I think that's the trap that I can't think of a single example for the life of me, but I've definitely read things or watched things where I'm like, you tried to replace way too many words and now it feels like a joke. Versus in this book, I think the author did a really good job of focusing his efforts and only selecting a couple of things to swap out that were really important to the story. Or were just a cool little detail to throw in there as a descriptive term that helps world build.
Yeah. Because despite the characters kind of being meh, whether they are just plain boring or whether they're just unlikable, the world is very cool.
Yes.
The world and the hook of the mystery are all very intriguing and good draws for this book. And then everybody just kind of sucks. And not in the fun way. Like, you know how you have the asshole protagonist, but you love that they're an asshole?
I'm going way back to childhood now and thinking Han Solo as one of the iconic first examples to me of that kind of anti-hero vibe.
Right.
Which set up a whole pattern of all the characters that I have loved in my fictional...
Yes, it has.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. That's fine. Like I said earlier, the Takeshi Kovacs, he really doesn't get any more likable throughout the book. He just kind of remains a jerk and remains a womanizing prick for the entire book.
There's really no growth, and the conclusion, well, I shouldn't say anything because this is a mystery and we don't want to spoil.
No, we won't spoil the mystery, but I will say the last the last like fifth of the book, where it's kind of the final act where everything's coming together so we can have the big payoff and the reveal of what happened. And I did not care.
Yeah, like
all.
The last bit was the mystery behind the mystery kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just getting through the pages at that point.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain why without just plain spoiling the book.
And I don't want to do that because it is a mystery.
That is true.
And because it's not a bad book.
No. Well,
You have stronger feelings on this than I do.
I have harsher feelings. I am much harder to please as a critic than you are.
Shocker.
Shut up. I have high standards.
We know.
Shush. But yeah, then you have, like we have mentioned, the rich guy who has hired Kovac.
Bancroft.
Yeah, Bancroft. He's a rich older guy, a rich old guy. He sucks. You have his wife, who's a rich old lady. She sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You have Ortega, who's the hard-boiled cop who ends up sleeping with the protagonist because that's what you do.
No. He's sleeved in the body of her cop ex-boyfriend. Well, not even ex-boyfriend. Just
ex-lover?
I don't know.
Fling? I don't know.
Whatever.
It's not explained all the way through. It's
They
an excuse
focus
for them to bang.
No, they focus really heavily on the fact that their bodies are like pheromone entwined.
Whatever.
That's one of the aspects that was
It's
frustrating.
gross. But in that, while I understand that, there's also part of that I think is interesting, like the fact that one of the things he struggles with almost the entire book is the fact that this sleeve has a nicotine addiction,
Yes.
whereas his last one did not.
Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting part of this world where it's like, yeah, what if you get a sleeve that has a nicotine addiction or whatever other
Or
any kind of condition that you did not previously have? How does that affect you coming into it and as you are waking up into the sleeve?
Because, I mean, to be fair, this body also has something that's referred to as neurochem that makes his reactions faster and whatnot. Stuff like that.
Neurochem is just active adrenaline. It's adrenaline he turns on. That's all it is.
Okay. That's fine.
Does it? Did you see it as something else?
No, but neurochem sounds cooler.
It's neurological chemicals. It's adrenaline. I'm
Man.
sorry. I'm sorry I ruined it.
Oh.
There is a point, and you can't just rename things to make them cooler. Giving them a new name does not make them cooler.
Okay, but that worked for me in that specific instance. In that instance, it was great. Until you ruined it.
I'm sorry. I've played too many video games. I'm too used to having the adrenaline button.
I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But yeah, you have, who else? You have, like we mentioned, the three kind of girls in the whorehouse. They don't really matter.
I mean, they're important to the plot, but only for the moment that they are important to the plot.
Yes,
and then it doesn't matter anymore. I would consider the hotel AI to be a character.
So the hotel that Kovac is staying at is an AI that has its own personality and
whole system. It can just deliver things to him, and
it's the hotel takes the place of the guy in the chair. That is what the hotel is.
Yeah.
Not to be reductive again. It is. He constantly goes back to the hotel for information. Mm-hmm. If he needs something from the web, he just asks the hotel to get it for him. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It is nice to have that as a crutch of being like, oh, we need information given to the audience. The Hendrix can give us, which is the name of the hotel.
Mm-hmm. But I do think it's interesting. You said in the show that the hotel was a little different.
So one of the things I enjoyed about it is kind of, instead of just having just a voice kind of going over the loudspeakers when he's in the hotel talking to him, for some reason, they gave the hotel the physical persona of Edgar Allan Poe, which I loved. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. There's a point where Edgar Allan Poe goes and talks to a bunch of other AIs, and they're all in their personas just playing poker. And I love the idea of the AIs playing poker.
That's great.
It makes me so happy.
Is there a reason in the show that they changed the AI persona from Jimi Hendrix to Edgar Allan Poe?
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly have no idea. There's a few differences in the show where not only that, but the three girls, or two of the girls that we meet in the whorehouse, those are fused into one character. Honestly, I think that makes it a little better, makes things a little bit more streamlined, easier to follow. Apart from that, there's not a lot that I remember being different. I watched it when it came out, so it's been a while. Mm-hmm. But it is one of the very few pieces of media adapted from a book that I actually think is better than the book.
That's a strong statement from somebody who likes to read.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I think cyberpunk itself lends itself a lot better to a visual medium where you are able to see the neon and the smog and the
rain-soaked streets with all those lights reflecting.
Exactly. Which is not to say it can't work as a book. I just think it happens to work better as a medium because as a reader and as an audience of a book, it is hard to keep track of all those things when you are making these pictures in your head.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. Well, yes, of course. On screen, it's a visual medium. You can set the tone with a glance.
Right.
Rather than having to take the time introducing your characters to a world that's very different from their own and find ways to weave all those little details in there so that they have the right picture.
Right.
So that's fair. But there's not very many books that I would say fall in that category. The other one that's coming to mind is like Stardust by Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
It's a good book, but
better as a movie.
The movie was so much better.
Which that is something we may talk about on like a bonus episode or something of just cinematic adaptations of books, whether they're good, bad, or otherwise. But I do think in this case it lends itself a lot better to the show, not only because of the visual aspect, but I think the actors, and specifically the actor for Kovacs, does a lot better to making him more of a likable character. Because like I said, he's just kind of a jerk the entire book.
Yeah, this book, he's also very violent.
Yes.
Like, not just his character, but that goes towards, I think, making it hard to like him.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a jerk to everybody.
And then when things don't go his way, his solution is blast his way out.
Yeah, let's just blow people's heads off. Like
they do a lot of specifically decapitating people.
A lot.
Like there's a lot of emphasis on whether it's through a laser gun or whatever means.
Or like a too specific torture scene, in my opinion.
Yes.
I thought it was a little too graphic.
It is.
That was another thing that I saw on Goodreads is a few people saying that this book is kind of blood-soaked.
Yeah,
and gory.
100%. Which I think it does with cyberpunk specifically. I think it does fit into that genre very well. It is meant to be dark and gritty and have kind of the stakes of a character can die at any moment, just because that's the nature of the streets.
Yes, and when you look at neo-noir particularly, I think that that's true as well. I'm trying to think of movies I've seen that fit that. The only one that's coming to mind right now is Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, but I know there's others. Probably like Seven would be a neo-noir film, and that thing, yeah, blood-soaked, gory. Did not enjoy said movie.
I have not seen it, so
it was just pushing the bounds of like what I can watch comfortably.
That the gore didn't really bother me, but I don't know. I'm into Warhammer too.
I was gonna say
I am very desensitized towards gore.
It didn't bother me per se, but I did start to notice that the protagonist just really likes decapitating people. Again, you're trying to make me like this guy and want to follow him as he solves this mystery, but he keeps chopping people's heads off. This is hard. 'Cause
you gotta.
Do you?
You gotta, apparently. You gotta take somebody's head and store it in your fridge.
I'm just gonna let that one go.
Okay.
Like, it's fine. I will say I did want to know more about his past experiences. The little bit that we hear of him reflecting on like his childhood or his earlier time in the military and how that has turned him into the person he is. It's interesting. I wanted to know more about that. At one point, I was like, forget this mystery. Like, let's just go back and show me, how did you get to this point in your life?
There is a lot of that where it is which is not necessarily a bad thing. You want to have a little bit of mystery to your world as well. But he reflects on the envoys and how he hasn't talked to the envoys in hundreds of years.
Decades, at least.
Is it decades?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
There's a lot of large time spans.
Yes. Insert large time span here. And okay, yeah, why? What happened between them? He goes into a little bit of his childhood as a gang member, into the military, into the envoys. It's all very interesting, but there's just not enough. I think I'm not going to say how you should write a book. I don't know.
You can have an opinion.
Yeah, but I feel bad about it. I think if you would have spent less time if you would have spent basically taken the last fifth of the book, the mystery behind the mystery section, trimmed that in half and replaced that with all segments about Kovacs' past, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
I agree, because it was also hard for me because there were multiple characters who, without spoiling anything, have known him for a while or whatever, who comment on his being too nice or being too kind and it being a weak point. And I'm just like, I mean, I wasn't keeping track, but he's blown away a lot of people.
Yes.
So...
And one of them is it is very much like a male power fantasy, I'm going to avenge a woman scene.
Oh, yeah.
And he just goes in and blasts his way through this whole place, murdering everybody, unnecessarily in some cases, with the excuse of, well, you were here, so you deserved it. To the point that what the crime boss he is going after in this case says, bro, he just works security at this nightclub, and you murdered him. Mm-hmm. And Takeshi goes, well, he was here. Do you see why we don't really like him that much?
He's
not a good guy, and he's not even a fun kind of anti-hero. He's just the anti, with none of the hero.
So, what is your final rating?
You first.
So, given the fact that we have panned our last 2 books, this one is a little bit harder for me because for the first half of the book, I was totally sold, loved it, wanted to know more, was really going to give it, I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to give it like 4 stars. I'm so excited to have a book I love. And then the last half of the book hit me like a brick wall and I kept struggling to get through because I really just didn't care. So I'm going to drop this down to 3 stars. And that is my final rating for this book. 3 stars. What about you?
I give it 2 stars because the world is cool and that's about it. I would recommend the show. If you are into cyberpunk and noir, the show is a decent example of both of those. It's on Netflix. It's not like the greatest show or the most memorable show on the planet, but it's fun.
Someday we will read a book that Anty gives more than 2 stars to.
I don't believe it. I don't think it's going to happen. I hate. Just in general. I just hate in general.
I know. This was the one that I thought you were going to love, though. Because,
I did too.
Like, it's sci-fi, it's cyberpunk.
I love cyberpunk.
I know. Speaking of, what hast thou consumed?
What hast thou consumed?
Do you have anything to recommend to people?
Yeah. I'm going to recommend a better cyberpunk piece of media in Cyberpunk 2077, which is a video game for PC and PlayStation 5. It is based off of the Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop RPG, which was developed in the 80s. It is very tropey, but it is a very good... You have the mystery part of it. You essentially play this character who is dying because of a heist they pulled off, essentially. But it's a great open world, a great RPG. Every aspect of it is very well thought out and very immersive, from the random people you see on the streets, the gangs you interact with, the radio stations that you can listen to.
I've heard some of those.
Yeah,
great.
They're so good. The jazz station is great. But yeah, if you like RPGs, it's a 10 out of 10, one of the best RPGs ever made. Highly recommend it, and it is a much better cyberpunk world than Altered Carbon.
All right. There you go, guys.
What about you? What hast thou consumed?
So, the thing I would like to recommend has nothing to do with noir or cyberpunk.
Gross.
Hush. I rewatched a movie that I have seen several times, but it's been a long time, and that is The Great Escape, which came out in, I think, 1963. 1960s, for sure. And it's one of those movies that is on the list of great films everybody should see, but it's never considered to be like one of the greatest films because it's not an artsy movie, basically. If you're not familiar with the story, it's based on a true story and does a lot better being accurate than most Hollywood based on a true story. It's set in World War II when the German forces, basically they had a bunch of American, British, whatever, Allied forces, POWs. And these were all the guys that kept escaping from their POW camps. And then they would cause havoc. And then they would get recaptured. And they'd be put in a camp again. And then they'd escape again and rinse, repeat. So what they've done is the Germans are like, all right, we're going to build this maximum security POW camp, and we're going to put all the guys that keep escaping into this one place. And they have a whole conversation, like when they first open this camp at the beginning of the movie. And, you know, one of the British guys is like, you're putting all of your eggs in one basket. And the commandant is like, yeah, we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, and then we're going to watch that basket. Obviously, all the POWs get together, and they're like, this is our whole thing. We break out, and we're going to stage the biggest breakout that has ever happened ever. And we're going to get like hundreds of guys out. And so then, honestly, it proceeds like a slow burn heist movie, where it's them, all the little challenges, all the little sneaky sneaks that they have to do as they are trying to pull off this escape plan. It is almost 3 hours long, does not feel like it. It moves at a good clip. It has an all-star cast for the time. James Garner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, James Coburn, Richard Attenborough, bunch of other guys that I recognize and don't know their names. Iconic soundtrack that most people know. I don't know if you would recognize it, actually.
Probably not.
It's okay. I realize that this is probably boomer knowledge that I have.
Yes, it is.
That's why I wanted to rewatch the movie. I loved
Sure.
it as a kid. I wanted to see if it held up, and it really, really does. So, highly recommend. If you have never seen The Great Escape, it's fun. It's a fun movie.
Great.
That's all.
Great. Fantastic.
And it's free. I watched it for free on Hoopla with my library card.
So what are we reading next month? Where are we going?
So, next month is historical fiction, which is a genre I love.
Yay. I'm so excited about it.
We selected this book together.
No, I'm pretty sure I picked this book.
You picked this book off of my TBR list. So we both selected it.
It is a book called Cinnamon and Gunpowder by Eli Brown. I don't know the exact summary of it, but what the internet told me was a sexy pirate captain gets a chef, and the chef's got a chef for the sexy pirate captain. And I am so here for it.
Mm-hmm. Does this have anything to do with the fact that the sexy pirate captain is like Amazon redhead?
Listen, my type is not redheads.
Mm-hmm.
But
pirate queen?
Maybe. Okay.
Oh, and then there's food.
Yeah. There's food and a pirate queen. What more could you want? This is going to be a perfect book.
So, high hopes heading into to May, and
hopefully it's over. Hopefully I give it over 2 stars.
Yes.
Please
listen next month to find out if we finally found a book that Auntie likes enough to give 3+ stars to.
Oh, we can only pray.